Hey guys, Mike Rizzo back with you again. We're going to wrap up chapter 3 of Vertical Marriage today. In our last session, we went over the 15 caution flags, and that section also wraps up in the manual with asking each person to list 5 areas of strengths that they have and 5 areas of weakness that they have. And so the guy needs to do that and the girl needs to do that. We'll talk about that more in a future session, but just kind of piggybacking on with the caution flags is just a straight up question. Where are you strong in your life? Can you give me 5 examples of where you're strong? And how about 5 areas that you need work on, areas that are more like liabilities in your life? And so each person would do that, then we would discuss it in the session together. So today we're going to talk a little bit about expectations. And in the manual, now in our ministry, where we meet with couples, in person or online, we kind of like know them a little bit, and so we cover a little bit of their relational history. But if you're doing this on your own using these video sessions, there's a section, 6 questions under the relational history in the book. These are just geared to establish kind of a foundation. You kind of want to get to know this about one another, and if you're working through this with a close friend or mentor or pastor, they'll want to know this as well. It's basically just asking, what brought you two together, what led to this point of wanting to get married, how long have you been Christians, are you active members of a church, how do your parents feel, do they bless and support your future marriage. All previous dating relationships that were serious, have all those soul ties been broken off, or is everything good there? And then have you previously been married? How long ago was it? And why did the marriage end? And are there any loose ends there as well that need to be worked on? So that's under the section Relational History, which is in the Vertical Marriage book. Now, getting to expectations. Unmet expectations are really a big hurdle in our lives, even if you're single, and just even in your own personal life. Like for me as a man, over the years, I've sometimes fallen into the trap of maybe comparing myself with other men. At this recording right here, I'm 65 years old. So I might look at another guy that's 65 and, maybe he has his house paid off and he owns 3 rentals and he has rental income. I still have a mortgage at this viewing right now. And so comparison's deadly, right? And so, I would have expected that by the time I was this age, I would have, X, Y, Z. And so a lot of times, as you probably have heard me say or will hear me say, personal angst or unmet expectations in my own personal life, just between me and God or me and myself, will spill over as potential like shortness or irritation in my marriage relationship. So it's important to be aware of expectations. Are they realistic? What are they? Have you prayed through them? Etc. So some of the ones that we cover in the manual here are just things that most couples, kind of end up talking about this stuff anyway, but sometimes there's a question or two that they never thought of, and it's good to get it out of the way now so that way there's less surprises once you're married. So for example, where would you like to live once you're married? So something to talk about, right? Maybe the one fiance already has a house or already has an apartment, and you've already decided we're going to live there the first year, maybe the first 2-3 years. So you're good if you've already discussed it. But sometimes, one person, we've seen this happen, has an expectation. Well, I kind of thought we'd live out in the country, because I want my dog to run free, fenced in yard, big area. And the other person's like, not sure if we're going to be able to swing that early on in our marriage. Okay, well, I won't have that expectation then. I'll kind of tone that down and maybe, pray about that for the future. How much individual personal time do you anticipate needing each week? Once you're married, you're still going to want to be alone sometimes. Well, how much alone time do you need? An hour a day? A couple hours a week? Maybe I need like one night a week to go with my buddies or go by myself to a coffee shop and just read a book alone. So again, talking about these things beforehand kind of takes care of the issue, and that way it's not a surprise like one spouse asking the other, where are you going? Are you leaving without me? You want to go alone to the coffee shop? Why? So talking about it again helps in the preparation, premarital preparation, right? How often do you expect to spend time with your friends after you're married? How will you relate to opposite sex friends? It's not cool anymore. Once we're married, it's not going to be cool for you to, again, go to that coffee shop, meet an opposite sex friends, even though you're just friends, maybe you've been friends for a couple of years or whatever. But now, once we're married, that's going to change, right? Well, it's an expectation on our list here, and we make sure we talk about it with couples so that they are in agreement and that there's no surprises. How socially active do you plan to be as a couple? What's your expectation? Again, so that there's no surprises once you're married. You invited people over again, that's 3 times this week, right? I'm using an extreme example. But it's good to talk about things like this. Are you planning a job change after marriage? Again, couples that are engaged, soon to be married, have probably already talked through, like, how are we going to make money? What's your job? What's your job? How long are you going to continue in that job? Good to have that nailed down on this expectation list here. How many hours of sleep do you generally need? Are you a morning person or an evening person? Aren't you up yet? I kind of want to make the bed. Or why do you get up so early? Or, gee, I didn't expect this. That's why it's on our list to talk about. It all comes into play. Everything comes into play after you're married. All of who you are, all the way that you do life interacts and mingles together. So good to discuss these things beforehand. Are family meal times important to you? Okay, growing up, was it sitting around the table, family interacting, all having a meal together, placemats, napkins, the whole deal? Or was it just, sitting in front of the TV, grabbing takeout or something, really informal? What kind of expectation, do you have in that regard? Do you have similar interests in media? Okay, watching movies, playing video games. Some people still do that, right? I like to play memory games on my phone. It keeps the brain active, they tell me. Browsing the internet. Do you have similar interests in media? What's the expectation there? Are you going to be watching movies every night of the week? Are you going to be binging on, streaming media all the time? I didn't expect this, to take up so much time in your life, hence in our life, right? Good to discuss it a little bit ahead of time. Maybe you already have observed it in your person of interest. How about a regular date night? What's the expectation there? Well, I would expect that we would at least go out one night a week for a special time together. And of course, a lot of these things, are going to change. If you have children, you're raising a family, of course, that kind of brings a little shift, a major shift into your marriage. What recreational activities will you pursue together? Well, there's some things that we like to do that are the same. We both like to walk in the park. We both like to go to coffee shops and actually explore all the coffee shops that there are in the city till we find our favorite 1 or 2 or 3 and keep going to them. My wife and I enjoy doing that. We go to a coffee shop that we like, a couple different ones. Sometimes we'll bring a book. So if the conversation is not there, we don't just sit there doing nothing. We read, right? And we talk here and there, but we read. We also, sometimes we'll play a board game. There's a couple board games we like that we play against each other, two-person game. What about alcoholic beverages? Having them in your home could be an issue for some couples. What's your expectation? If you open the fridge, you see that 6-pack in there, you're like, hey, why is there beer in our house? And he or she says, well, what's the big deal? Well, I didn't expect that to happen. Yeah, maybe perhaps a minor thing for some couples, but good to cover that. That's why it's in our list of about 20 or 25 expectations. Who will do most of the cooking? and what types of food. When I first got married, I wasn't expecting my wife to be my mom, because my mom was just a typical, experienced, good Italian woman, awesome cook. I mean, made homemade raviolis. I got to pinch them with the fork to make the little ridges in them, and oh my gosh, homemade sauce, and just food off the charts. Before we got married, I did ask my wife if she would have a couple sessions with my mom to learn how to make our homemade sauce recipe. And my wife said yes. I didn't force her, I just asked her. And she made it so well that it was, I think, 2-3 years into our marriage, one day after we had spaghetti dinner, my dad said to my wife, "This tastes just like Mom's sauce." Perfect, perfect. And so, my wife made things that I never had before. I remember early on in our marriage, she made something called the cheeseburger pie. Yeah, it's a pie crust, and ground up hamburger in there, and and cheese. So it's sort of like a pizza / pie, but it was called cheeseburger pie, and then you put a little sauce on top of it. Never had it before. I ended up liking it. So who will do most of the cooking and what types of food? So I'm the breakfast cooker in our family. I do, bacon, eggs, pancakes, and all that. I don't cook dinners. That's my wife. So again, every couple will have their own, way to navigate here. And then expectations in terms of, who's going to do the laundry, who's going to clean the kitchen, who's going to take out the trash. That's my job. Who's going to do the yard work? There's some women that do yard work in their marriages. That's not wrong. Now again, I usually use the 80-20 rule. It's pretty safe. 80% of the cases, the guy is going to do yard work. He's going to do repairs on the house, power wash the house, maybe do the gardening. But again, 20% of the time, it might be the woman, or there might be a shared responsibility. All kinds of different, ways to do it. Not one way that's right or wrong. But good to talk about these types of things. Of course, the big one, do you plan on having children? Good to have an expectation there. You don't want to find out later that your spouse really wants to have 12 kids and you were thinking more of 3. We also have in our manual an appendix on birth control. Important to talk about that on the front end as well. And then just a couple more. What about extended family? How often are we going to visit your parents that live 1,000 miles away? Or my parents that live, 2 hours away, closer drive. And what about, special holidays, like if you celebrate Christmas or Thanksgiving or other holidays, how are we going to navigate that? Again, things to talk about beforehand. So that's it for this session on expectations. We wrapped up chapter 3 here, and we'll see you next time. Bless you.